Hello guys, this time we are going to have a little bit of test. Recently we were talking about the LPDO aka hanging pieces, and now I would like to check out if you can understand the topics a little bit more deeply, and this time I'll be asking you about the captures hierarchy. Here you can see on the screen the first point from the list. In total there are 7 points, and try to write down what are you looking for if there is no hanging pieces. If there is a hanging piece, you are just having the captures hierarchy, just capture the hanging piece as the first point. Now you can pause the video for, let's say, half a minute, maybe a minute, maybe 2, it's up to you. Write down another 6 points from the list. What do you think, what are the next in the captures hierarchy? And after that, continue the video. And now let's continue. I hope you wrote down another 6 remaining points from the list. And now let's get into the test. The test is going to be pretty easy, but I guess you will like it anyway. What is the test all about? In a moment, you'll see 7 positions. In each position, it is white to move. Your task is to find the best move. You can write it down if you'd like to compare. And at the same time, at some positions, there may be no kings. Why? Because this way you will not be pretty much having trouble to distinguish the best move, and sometimes the kings are simply distracting from the main goal. Therefore, in a moment you'll see 7 positions. In each position you have 7 seconds to solve and to write down your answer, and after that you will see the solutions from these tests. And now, if you are ready, let's get started. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, start. Now a brief reminder from the previous episode about hanging pieces recognition. Now you have the guide or short guide if you wish. What is the ideas that you need to put into the practice if you see from the opponent's perspective when they can capture your piece. It is the hanging piece recognition from the points that I presented at the previous video. The first one, the pawns, the V-shape or reversed V-shape. The second one, the knight's circle. The third one, rooks might be located on unoccupied line, file or rank. In order to capture the piece, there must be empty space or corridor in between these pieces. Next one, bishops must be the same color as the attacked piece, and it needs to be located on the unoccupied diagonal in order to capture the piece. And again, empty space or corridor in between these pieces are required. And the last one, if the queen, it is the same as the bishop or the queen, must be located on the unoccupied line, file, rank or diagonal in order to capture the piece. Empty space corridor in between these pieces are unoccupied are necessary as well. And the conclusion, if there are any pawns, especially the opponent's ones, on the space corridor to the attacked piece, no capture in one move is possible. It means that there is no hanging piece. If there are pieces along these lines, this rule applies too, but they can disappear much faster. I mean the pawns or the pieces. Therefore, you need to take it into account. I hope you understand it. And now the solution to the first task that I ask you to write down, the captures hierarchy. The first one is the 3 pieces aka hanging pieces LPDO that you know from the previous episode. The second one, tactically faked defended pieces. The second, B, tactically, artificially, or bad defended pieces. The third one, enemy pieces of the great value. The fourth, all enemy pieces attacked by the pawns. The fifth, enemy pieces of equal value. Sixth, capturing hanging pieces. And seventh, trading pawns. In a moment, I'll present these from the position on the chessboard and explain them step by step, and I hope you'll understand the ideas of captures hierarchy a little better, especially if they are pretty easy if you practice them step by step and understand why this captures hierarchy is set this way and listed this way. And now let's get into the positions. We have the positions that I told you that we'll be looking at, and the first task that I ask you, 7 seconds each, just reminder, what is the best move in this position? The first idea is LPDO. LPDO means that there is the hanging piece and you need to capture. Of course, it's a little bit extended version because now we can see the queen is not protected, the rook is not protected, the bishop is not protected, and the knight is not protected. And the rule is the following. We start to gain as much material as possible. If the queen is not protected, if we capture it with the rook, it's +9, because the queen is valued 9 pawns. If we capture the rook, +5. If we capture by the bishop, we capture the bishop by the knight, +3. And if we capture the knight, is +3 either. Therefore, at this moment, you know that capturing the queen would be the best move, because we gain the most material. Take notice, it's the simplest ideas ever. I do not know any other one that is so simple. Even the 3 to 4 year old kids can understand it very well. I hope you understand it too. Let's get to the next position. In next position, I gave you the opportunity to spot the idea of the tactically fake defended pieces. What does it mean? Visually, we can see that queen captures the queen and bishop recaptures. But in fact, it's not possible because the bishop is pinning the bishop on the light square diagonal, therefore the queen is hanging. It means hanging in the sense that optically it seems like protected, but tactically it's the fake defended. Therefore, it's very important. And take notice, it is one of the simplest mistakes or even blunders at most games if there are a lot of pins, a lot of tactics, a lot of tension. Therefore, the second idea from the captures hierarchy is the tactically fake defended piece. And now let's get to the third position. The third position and the third idea that I would like to present. At this moment, we can see the queen is attacked once, protected once, therefore it seems like everything is pretty fine, isn't it? Not quite. Why? Because the third idea is the tactically bad defended pieces or artificially defended pieces. What does it mean? It means that if you capture this piece, there is something behind it. What does it mean? If you capture the queen and the opponent recaptures, it opens up the idea of the back rank checkmate because rook is no longer protected the back rank. Therefore, after rook gets into the last rank, the only legal move is to block with the rook, and then rook captures the rook. And now we can see that this is the back rank checkmate idea, and now game over. Therefore, at this moment, the queen was protected by the rook, but it was the tactically bad defended piece. Why? Because the rook has the function of protecting the queen and the function of protecting the back rank. It cannot get two functions at the same time. At the same time, in the higher level, we'll be talking about it, that this is so-called overloading. The rook is just overloaded and it cannot fulfill all of the functions. Now the fourth idea. The fourth idea is the enemy piece of the greater value. And now let's have a look. We can see that now we cannot have the LPDO or hanging piece because the queen is protected by both pawns. Therefore, we are not winning the queen for free. And now, what's the idea? The idea behind it is that all of the pieces now right here are attacking the queen. And now, which one to capture with? The general idea is the capture should be done to get as much benefits as possible. At this moment, the lowest value piece should capture the highest one. There is no more high value piece than the queen, therefore we capture with the lowest one. The lowest one is either the bishop or the knight, because they are worth just 3 points, and more valuable are either the rook or the queen. And now let's analyze one by one. If we capture with the knight, then the pawn recaptures, and we are just losing the knight and winning the queen. If we capture with the bishop, pawn recaptures, it's the same. If we capture with the rook and pawn recaptures, we are losing the rook by winning the queen. And if we captured with the queen and pawn would recapture, it would be just the trade. We do not gain anything. Therefore, the solution for this puzzle was to capture either by the bishop, either by the knight. Both of them are the same type of. And the fifth position and the fifth concept. Enemy pieces attacked by pawns. Take notice, one of the easiest way to recognize how we can win the material is look at the points. Look at the pawns. Now, the pawns are attacking at this moment all of the pieces. The pawn from c5, the queen, the pawn from d3, the bishop, the pawn from e3, the knight, and the pawn from h5, the rook. And now the idea is the following. No matter what captures we make, each time we are winning the material, because all of the pieces are worth more than the pawns. And now which one we should capture with? The main idea is the same one as the previous one. We should gain as much material in one capture. Therefore, the pawn is the lowest value, the queen is the highest value, therefore the difference is the biggest. Therefore, this is the best move. If the pawn captures the queen would not be possible for any reason, we should capture the highest that is available at this moment, therefore capture the rook. If both pieces would not be possible because they will be gone, for example, we capture either the knight or the bishop because they are the same value. But generally, in this position, the best idea is to capture the queen with the pawn, even if the queen is protected by the pawn and by the rook. The sixth idea is capturing hanging pawns. Take notice, we were talking about the pieces first, because the pieces are more valuable than the pawns. But after, if we check out and there is no possible to capture the pieces, we need to focus over the pawns. And now, let's check out which pawns we can capture with. We can capture these pawns, as I just highlighted. And now, which one would have the consequences and which one would be the best? And now take notice, sometimes we can argue which one is better, because there is no counterplay from black's perspective, but I will present all of the ideas anyway. First, if we capture the pawn c5, we open up the diagonal for the bishop, and we are pinning the pawn. The pawn cannot capture our pawn, and the pawn cannot move forward, because both of these moves would be illegal. Therefore, at this moment, we are opening up the diagonal for the bishop activated. The second idea would be to capture the pawn with the pawn. Capturing the pawn with the pawn, blocking the pawn, at the same time cutting off all of the squares for the king, because previously these squares were cut off by the minor pieces, and the pawn cut off the last remaining square for the king. At the same time, at this moment, the piece would be possible to put on one of these squares, and it cannot be chased away by the opponent's pawns. The other idea, beside these two that we analyzed, and the best one according to my theory, is to capture the pawn, and if capturing the pawn, we are threatening to capture the knight to promote into the queen, and push the pawn to promote the queen as well. Therefore, this would be the most powerful, because it gets more function. First of all, it attacks the piece. Second of all, it gets closer to the promotion. And third of all, there are two possible ideas it generates. Actually, one idea from two variations, promoting with capture and without capture, and black cannot stop both of these ideas. Therefore, I guess this is the best move. Of course, some people may argue that this move is even better, because at this moment we are threatening checkmate in one, but take notice if the king gets closer, after the capture can step back, and so on. But after we capture the pawn, they cannot stop us from promoting the pawn into the queen on the next move, regardless what they play. And the last position from the concepts and the list that I ask you to write down the solution is the trading pawns to reach the goal. Take notice, we are talking about trading pawns, not capturing, and trading the pawns not just blindly, but to reach another goal. Another goal at this moment would be the promotion or making a breakthrough to promote one of the pawns. And now, how many captures are there at this moment? We have 2 captures. Now, let's start with the pawn that is the closest to the promotion. At this moment, we capture. Now, the idea being to capture the pawn and promote, or push the pawn and promote. Take notice, the pawn from the black's perspective doesn't have that fast route to the promotion because we'll be first one to make the promotion with check. And now, if black replies to capture, now we capture one more time. Another one is jack capture moving forward to promotion. If black captures the pawn, now we are moving forward to make so-called a breakthrough. Now the idea being is to capture and promote, or push the pawn forward and promote on the background in both cases. After the pawn captures, we recapture, and now so-called the pawn race that we'll be talking about in one of the episodes as well. Now the pawn moving forward, and the most important, the pawn gets to the last rank with the promotion. Black cannot do it as well. After the king step back, the pawn is captured, we are winning. And now another idea, because this position is a little bit more tricky. After the capture, we know already what's going on. After the capture, the opponent recaptures. After the capture, now you can say, wait a second, we do not need to capture, we can try to make a pass pawn by our own, and we can do the same idea as previously, right? Not quite. Why? Because at this moment we capture, the opponent recaptures, and again we are faster to the promotion line with check than the opponent. And the same, after the king step back, we just grab the pawn and winning. And now the summary. Now let's check it out what's going on here. As I just mentioned, I just gave you the test. Remember? It was at the beginning. The test was the following. I ask you to write down the remaining points from the captures hierarchy, the first one being the 3-piece aka hanging pieces, and the 6th one you needed to write down. And now we have the captures hierarchy with the guide. I guess it's pretty helpful if you'll be practicing that and then applying in your games. It will be way faster and way easier to recognize what is the best captures, the best and most beneficial ones. And let's make a little bit of reminder. The first one is the 3-piece aka hanging pieces. If you can spot LPDOs of hanging pieces, you should prefer the highest value piece to capture first. The second A is tactically fate defended pieces. It means that they are not really defended because they are pinned to the king. Pinned to the king, therefore they are just visually defended, but in fact they are not. The second B is tactically, artificially or bad defended pieces. They are not defended as well because they have other tasks to fulfill. For example, the other function would be to protect from the back rank mate or to protect from making the pin, making the promotion, and so on. The third one, enemy piece of the greater value, attacked by lower pieces. For example, if you are attacking the queen or the rook with the bishops or the knights, always when we capture, and they even recapture, we win the material. And of course, if the queen is attacked by the rook, and we capture the queen with the rook, and it's going to be recaptured, we win the material as well. Next one is all enemy pieces attacked by the pawns, because the pawns are way lower in value than any of the pieces, and preferably we want to capture the highest value first. For example, if the pawn is attacking the queen, we are capturing the queen. If the queen is not possible to be captured, we try to capture the rook, or the bishop, or the knight. The fifth one is enemy piece of the equal value. Most often they are identical pieces in order to reach other goals. For example, if we capture enemy pieces equal value, then we can try to have other goals. For example, we can make the promotion, we can go forward, we can just go to the 7th rank, and so on. Another one is the capturing hanging pawns, and the hanging pawns open or closed file diagonal rank. Therefore, depending on which hanging pawns we are capturing and then what are the additional benefits, we can choose from many captures. And the last one is the trading pawns. Take notice with the asterisk, because trading is not capturing. By trading, I mean capture the pawn for the pawn, but at the same time, we are reaching another goals like promotion, pawn breaks, and so on. Then, of course, the last one is the key question: is it better to draw arrows from your pieces towards the other ones, or from the opponent's pieces to your pieces if you are scanning if it is hanging, I guess it's better to draw from your pieces towards the other ones. I guess it's a little bit more efficient. Okay guys, I hope you liked this episode and understand the captures hierarchy. Thank you very much for watching and see you next time.